All right, so we're going to look at interest groups. Probably the one structure of our government that has the worst reputation around. So fun times. So let's look at them. These are groups that share a policy goal, all right? And they enter the policy process, right, at a couple of different points, okay? We're going to look at that iron triangle again, but keep that in mind. So these interest groups, they're specialists, okay? They work with and are organized with political parties, all right? These are a group of people who they are also a linkage institute, okay? So they are a linkage institution between people and government, just like parties are, okay? So political parties are a link between the voters and the government. Then interest groups are also a linkage institution between people and the government. All right, let's refresh our memory on Federalist number 10, all right, and the idea that factions are like-minded groups, all right, adverse to the interests of the community, okay? So these groups can be made up of the majority, or they can also consist of a minority, all right? And oftentimes we'll see both in our system. So to control the cause of a faction, right, destroying liberty or giving everyone the same opinion, right, that's what you would have to do. So that's not going to happen. So to control the effects of a faction, right, we have republicanism and a large republic, okay? So you can either just destroy liberty or you can have a large republic and have this thing called republicanism. Not the party, all right, the process. So let's look at the reputation of an interest group, okay? Remember, well, it's mostly bad. So usually lobbyists who work for the interest group are seen as dishonest, all right? And the dishonest ones are the ones that get the most press, all right? So lobbying has in itself a negative connotation, all right? There's a lot of good groups out there that have lobbyists, and then there's a lot of groups you might not agree with that have lobbyists, all right? And it's usually the shady ones that get more of the press because, you know, they're shady, all right? So let's look at those ideas of what democracy is. All right, again, so we have this idea, right, political theory of pluralism. And this is where politics is mainly a competition among groups, right? And each one is pressing for its own preferred policy. That's pretty interest group minded, okay? All right, and again, with pluralism, right, many of the centers of power and many diverse groups, all right, they're competing, okay? So no group wins, all right, or really loses all the time. They all kind of get a little something, but they all never get enough, okay? So then let's look at elitism. Okay, this theory talks about societies being divided among class lines, right? We have the upper class elite, all right? They're going to be the ones who rule, right? Elitism is also going to be the idea that power is not equally divided among groups, all right? Some have more. Remember, money is free speech. So, I mean, if you have more money, you have more free speech. That's kind of cool, I guess. All right, and then we're going to have large corporations and unions. They're going to hold a lot of the power, okay, because they have more of the population, plus more money, plus that means more free speech, right? Plus that just means more influence. All right, so remember the iron triangle, we've already gone over it, right? And issue networks, the idea is that iron triangles are formed, right, really for specific policy areas, all right, among congressional committees, the agencies, and then the interest groups, okay? And they're all wanting a little something out of this, okay? And remember issue networks, right? These are the groups that are connected through a policy issue. They're usually more diverse. They usually focus on one streamlined thing because that's all they can agree on anyway. All right, so interest group influence. Okay, right? We have the free rider problem. All right, this is actually kind of, right, an issue and is everywhere. So basically, some people don't join interest groups because, you know, they benefit from the group's activities already without officially joining, right? Like, I don't have to go join the Sierra Club. I just benefit when we get money to help with our national forests, all right, and upkeeping our hiking trails. Yay for me. Okay, so that's a free rider problem. Okay. Interest groups have unequal resources, right? Some have a lot more money than others. Some have a lot more push and pull than others. Some groups have more access to decision makers, right? Maybe more money, larger size, all right, more ability to knock on the door, and the congressperson will actually answer. So what makes an interest group successful? All right, intensity. You better have some passion here, okay? They're usually single issue groups, all right, which are groups that focus on a narrow interest, all right, and are not interested in compromise. There's no interest there. They do not want to compromise. Don't talk to them about compromise. They are only concerned about this one thing, and coming up with a compromise is not part of it. It's usually an emotional issue. Okay. All right. And they're more likely to use protests and other means of political participation than traditional interest groups. Okay. And those traditional interest groups that use lobbyists, right? So single issue groups are louder as a group when they stand around with signs, right? And they get the press versus, right, the lobbyists. They're more one-on-one, right? They're more behind the scenes. Okay. So what makes an interest group successful? Financial resources, right? It's the idea that you're getting money, right, and donations because this can translate into access to politicians. Okay. Phone calls, meetings, dinners, things like that. Okay. So this is why joining some of these groups, you have to pay to be a member. The wealthier the group is, right, doesn't always win in the policy arena. Okay. So that is kind of something to just take note of. Okay, so lobbying, right? I've said the word a couple times. Let's talk about it. All right, this is the person that gets to meet with the governmental decision maker, right, hoping to influence their decision on something. Okay. All right, so lobbying in and of itself, right? Lobbyists provide information. Lobbyists can help politicians plan strategies for legislation. Okay, lobbyists can help politicians plan political strategies for re-election campaigns. Lobbyists can provide ideas and innovations that can be turned into policies for which the politician can take credit, right? The lobbyist is the expert. They're the one that actually knows the issue, so they can inform, educate, and guide, all right, somebody in office. All right, so how do you get public support? Okay, so groups try to cultivate a good public image. All right, I mean, you don't want to look like a bunch of jerks because nobody would want to be part of you. Okay, they're going to use marketing strategies to influence opinion. Okay, these groups are going to purchase advertising to motivate the public about an issue. Think about those issue ads that are out there. All right, sometimes those issue ads are coming if you pay attention to current events because a bill is on the floor or is being introduced about that topic. So they're trying to push you to go and call your congressperson, right? So advertising, really motivating the public about something. They also use grassroots lobbying to get members to advocate on behalf of their interests, right? That's grassroots. Call your congressperson, send them an email, send them a letter, something like that. All right, then there's this thing called electioneering. Okay, this is a direct group involvement in election process. Okay, all right, so we talked already about political action committees, right? These are created by corporations and unions to donate money to candidates. Okay, they file under 527s or 501c3s, right? This gets the independent expenditure. The idea is that, oh, I'm not coordinating with the candidate. I'm simply pushing for that candidate. Okay. And some of these groups actually do give to both sides, right? They're like laying their odds out there. They just want access to the person who wins. They're not necessarily fully supporting one side or the other per se. They just want that relationship. Okay. These groups can help with campaign strategies. Remember, you can't coordinate, but you can definitely push issues out there. All right. They also, interest groups, all right, remember, they can be involved in litigation. Okay. And the biggest one that I'm going to talk about is the Amicus Curae, right? Remember that the Supreme Court gets a case, right? They're going to look at the evidence, right? The issue, the arguments of the case, but they're also going to look at and take into consideration the Amicus Curae, all of those outside groups who would be impacted by the decision of the case, right? And they look at these. Amicus Curiae went from, right, probably a decade ago, 15 years ago, to like maybe 8 to 10 being sent in on some cases here and there, to now some of these cases current day are getting somewhere over 100 Amicus Curiae briefs that they have to sort through. So, all right, conventional participation. right? Remember that you can vote, you can write letters or send emails, you can contact your representatives, give them a call, okay? You can work on campaigns and you can make campaign contributions, all right? These are the typical ways to participate in this process, all right? And or get involved with an interest group, right? Give money to them, get engaged. All right. The unconventional participation, right? This is the one that not everybody does, right? Is to boycott things. Okay. I know that my personal shopping dollar does not matter everywhere, but there are certain places I just don't shop because of their thoughts and ideas about certain things or what they say. So, right, I have my one person boycott. Does it mean anything? Nope. But morally, I sleep better at night. Okay, protests, right? Remember, we have a First Amendment right to this, but remember, the minute you pick up a rock and throw it, it's no longer a peaceful protest. All right, it's a riot. Then we have sit-ins, right? The thing that changed civil rights for movement forever, because as the civil rights movement was kind of starting to peter out in the 1960s, North Carolina started their sit-ins at Woolworths, and everything changed. Civil rights movement got a huge push, so sit-ins are big. And then there's violence. Don't condone it. Don't do it. And you just really kind of ruin your whole like purpose and goal there, because now you have this huge bad reputation that nobody wants to associate with you. So, all right, update your notes, get your vocab in there. Be sure to be looking at that note taker. And until next time.